Welcome to Soul Conversations with Sandra, the podcast. Welcome, welcome. Today we are having a great guest. All my guests have been great, but I really love this young lady because when I first started on Instagram, she was one of the first people that liked what I was doing. You know, she always had a little comment, a little suggestions, and always kept me feeling like I was part of her family in a lot of her posts and her lives. So I am happy to welcome her now. Her name is Alison. She's with Beat Peace with Alison. So I'm going to wave at her because she's waving at me, and I'm going to request her in. And Soul Conversations with Sandra, the podcast. We're here just in this free podcast to just have a great conversation and welcome anybody in that is listening. Hi, how are you?
Hi, your little intro was so touching and sweet. I have to say, you're like one of my favorite people that I engage with on here, so that was very sweet.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Hold on a second. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of something here. And let's see if we can get it moving here. Okay, I guess it's good. It's telling me that it's telling my followers. So it's got this big banner across it, but I don't think that'll show up.
No, I don't see anything.
Yeah. So let's get started because we've got an hour. I know with me, I grew up a chatterbox. I love to talk. So we'll probably go just over an hour because I'm just I'm like a kid in a candy shop. What's this? What's this? What's this? How do you do this? How does this work? So I'm kind of ready.
All right.
So my first, we're going to talk about, it's a two-parter question. It's about life path, but I know from listening to what you've been through in your life, how you got to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. So can we start there? Is that too personal to talk about?
Nothing off the table. I'm an open book.
Okay. So I know that, I don't know if this was the start of your beginning of your journey, but you had some issues with health. And I was really, the pictures that you showed me were like, how did you get from there to here?
Yeah. Oh, man. So that's definitely a significant part of the journey for sure. I don't know, you guys have probably seen the little memes and stuff like that on social media that say, if you don't take care of your wellness, you're going to have to take care of your illness, right? And the interesting thing about illness is that 90% of disease and illness in human beings relates back to stress and trauma in some capacity. So just planting that seed there. So yes, I got very sick. Around 2017 is when I started noticing like something's not right. I just knew something wasn't right in my body. And the conventional sick care system kept saying, oh, no, you're fine, you're fine. I'm like, no, I'm not. Something's going on. So long story short, I found some functional, more holistic medicine practitioners. And that, too, has been a journey, and I won't deep dive too much into that. But one of the practitioners I found said to me, like, part of his medicine for me was daily meditation. And so I was like, I used to be really spiritual, and I've become kind of disconnected from this aspect of myself. And I'm in yoga teacher training, and they want me to meditate every day, and my holistic doctor does. So clearly the universe wants me to do something. Now, meditation did not heal me, but it helped me jump timelines in my healing. There's a lot of spiritual and scientific reason for that. And then everything else came crashing in after that. I realized I wanted to help other people to really experience the similar kind of healing. And then I went through a spiritual awakening, my second one of my life, that was telling me, hey, Allison, this job that you're working, you're just going through the motions of the Matrix. You need to do something else. And so it just continued to evolve from there and push me into this path.
Okay, okay, okay. So here we are. We're in this path. Is this the, okay, is this the jump off point? Is this the deep dive, or is this just the calm before the Allison storm?
So I would say the chronic illness, experiencing chronic illness, was just kind of getting everything revved up. That was the kickstart. Whereas so I've had two spiritual awakenings. My first one was in my 20s, and then my second one was in my 30s, and 38, going on 39 now, but it was a few years ago. And what happened was everything just started like triggering the fuck out of me. I was just like,
we're pirates over here. Go ahead.
Everything. And I was like, I had enough awareness that what was happening is old programmings were kind of being like stirred up. And so it was a really uncomfortable time, as all of you who have been through spiritual awakenings know. It's not pleasant. But it made me realize, so it was almost like the chronic illness, which I'm about 90% healed now. There's like one little thing, we're getting there, it's happening. And that's a miracle, because most people with chronic illness feel like they'll never get over it. That's not true. But anyways, so it started like just the chronic illness was basically the universe being like, hey, bitch, pay attention. And then I started paying attention. And by paying attention, I realized that I was not in alignment with why I had incarnated here on Earth. And then that's where everything was getting stirred up right there.
Right. And for me too, I think I've been through an awakening process,
mm-hmm.
or spiritual process in every area of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So the vast awakening was like, Source told me, this is it. You're awakened everything. And just kind of Source said, what are you going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like the ball's in your court. You
mm-hmm.
can do
mm-hmm.
anything you want. And I'm going to always say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you call it a negative, I'm still going to say yes, because I gave you free will. I'm not going to usurp it. So now you're awake in all these areas. Now jump.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
What?
Oh my God, yes. So I was like, man, I really want to make this thing that I'm experiencing my purpose and my passion. But we live in a 3D reality, let's face it. We live in a like material 3D reality. So not unfortunately anymore, because I love what I do, but unfortunately we have to work.
Right.
So it's like this process of turning my passion into my living so I could be really embodied in what I do. And like, I like to say, thank Goddess, because I just like wake up every single day now so happy that I get to help others tap into pleasure and peace and abundance in their lives too. But I had to go through that not so pleasant time first.
Yeah. I think the part of the awakening process is what they call the dark night of the soul, which it's not comfortable, because what it is your inner being making you aware of everything
mm-hmm.
on just above the surface of that inner
mm-hmm.
and everything that is projecting outward. And it's not comfortable, because it's you being like looking in a mirror and having the mirror talk to you and tell you, look, this is what's going on, bitch. You need to get yourself together. You know, okay, here it is. You got to deep dive in yourself. What parts of you are you holding on
Yeah.
that no longer serve you. And some of those parts are what you don't really, what you've been told not to let go of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I it's almost like our ego, our human self, our, I would say wounded ego, because I don't think actually all ego is necessarily bad. I think ego is the 3D human aspect of us versus higher self or spirit or source. And we're these dynamic, multi-dimensional beings, and they're both important. But when you're going through a spiritual awakening, your wounded ego is basically like all the things that have been ingrained into your subconscious as this is truth and this is reality is being like pulled out, and it's very scary, and there's a lot of resistance that comes to it. In fact, just making me think about, like, sometimes I see people who are like, I've been in this dark night of a soul for years or this long period of time, and that's because their ego is having a lot of challenge just letting go and trusting and surrendering into the process. And I don't know why it is, but some people have a harder time transitioning to the next phase of their awakening.
Yeah, because the ego is holding on. The ego is just
Mm-hmm.
a a what I consider to be kind of like a software package that our mind made, made available to itself
Mm-hmm.
while it was figuring out what consciousness. It became conscious and said, what do I do now? How do I keep Alison or Sandra safe? How do I do that? Well, it created this program that was able to take down downloads, but it didn't say, observe these downloads and only choose the ones that are for Alison or Sandra's greater good. It
Mm-hmm.
just, this download process. Now we're getting in touch, or most of us are getting in touch with soul, and we're getting in touch with our body, and we're getting in touch with all the mind within our bodies that was supposed to be a triune creator. And this other little process that was created said, well, I've been here long enough, I think I'm a being too, except it's not attached to anything, so it doesn't want to give up presence inside of you. So through those dark nights of the soul, man, your ego, that egoic mind system, is pulling one way, and source is saying, I'm expanding you the other,
Mm-hmm.
and your ego is saying, no, I don't think so. Come back, right? And it right,
Yes.
it
Yes,
hurts,
there's that.
you know.
Yes,
It,
there's that
yeah,
conflict.
right. So tell me,
Mm-hmm.
so you're on this path. You
Mm-hmm.
out your, like we all do in our 3D. Our the situation is we all have to support ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're finding what you love while healing through what you love. You
Mm-hmm.
found, I want to show other people how they can heal too, how they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be a victim of their trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So that next part of the journey is that finding out how to
Mm-hmm.
take this passion and make it what your business is. How did you?
Mm-hmm. You know, we could be here forever talking about that. It, I feel like it's kind of, my business has evolved as I have evolved, which I think makes sense because it's kind of a reflection of me in many ways. But when I first started out, I call myself a spiritual life and business coach. But then when I first started out, I called myself a spiritual stress and trauma coach because I really had this acute understanding that if you're going through an awakening, or even if you're not going through awakening and life just feels really fucking hard, ground zero for navigating that is, and I know you mentioned you wanted me to mention this, so here, regulating the nervous system. Regulating the nervous system. Making your human aspect of who you are feel safe. And when your human feels safe, then it makes it a lot easier to tiptoe into other possibilities. I always like to say when I do manifestation work with people that the foundation to manifesting anything is nervous system regulation. And the reason why is twofold. One is whenever I work with someone who wants to manifest something, the most popular thing that people want to manifest is money or wealth or some kind of material thing like that. And I get it. I love money. But when I ask them, why do you want this? They're like, because it would make me feel safe. It would make me feel secure. So what this tells me is you don't actually desire the material thing you want to manifest into your life as much as a certain quality of existing within life. And that's that feeling of safety. And when you can start to feel safe in your body as a human, then everything else you desire starts to fall into place because you're cool with or without it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been taught as human beings, as just the humanness of us, okay? Because we have a beingness within us that actually keeps us alive and well. Just, but the humanness in us is all those downloads that have been given to our egoic mind that say, well, if you have money, you're going to feel safe. If you have, whether you're a man or a woman, if you have a husband or a wife, you're going to feel safe. If you get a great education and graduate from the best college ever, you're going to be safe. So it's basically us looking outside to things or two things or four things that make us feel safe instead of going within us and regulating all the things that we were born with.
Mm-hmm. Bingo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My philosophy is our internal reality creates our external reality, right? It's not the other way in. It's not doing something in the external to shift the internal. And that's what a lot of people try to do. It's opposite of that. It's an inside game.
Yes. I love the way you put that, an inside game, because our soul came here to play. When I was meditating one day, quite a while ago, my soul laughed at me. My soul said, I came here to play. You take yourself way too serious. Right? And I went, what? Who, me? Right? And when I started actually observing my life as I'm moving through it, even now, my daughter will remind me she'll remind me about something which reminds me that my inner or my ego is taking the forefront and being way too serious about things. But, if we played at work, like kids play when they play outside and play tea party, or when they make patties out of the mud, the reason why the reason why they can eat the mud and enjoy it is because they're so in there. They are that chef that they're playing at, right? And so I went, oh, so I need to play from the inside outward, right? So when you're talking about regulating your body, it's body, mind, and soul work together to create. So if we're not taking time to take care of our nervous system, if we're not taking time to understand how the body works, which is the science part of it, or science biology part of it, then in one significant piece. Is that correct?
Yeah, and what I loved about your reflection was you hit on so many parts that we could even tailspin off into even more interesting continued conversations, because you talked about playfulness. And playfulness is like this inherent divine feminine attribute. Regardless of your gender, we're all comprised of masculine and feminine energy. It can be wounded, unhealthy, or it can be divine healthy. And being able to lean into playfulness is inherently divine feminine, but most people are wrapped up in wounded masculine, all work, no play, hustle, 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 right? So that part stuck out to me. And I consider divine feminine to be our direct link to source energy, and divine masculine our direct link to earth. So that was a super interesting thing I heard you say. And another super interesting thing that I heard you say was talking about how when kids are in playfulness, how present they are, how they're not like in the past or in the future, they're in the now and they're playing with that presence.
Mhm.
And that really struck me as well too, because being able to be present is an inherently divine feminine trait too, because when we're in our divine feminine, we can be in a state of ease and flow and receptivity. It's just a state of being, whereas divine masculine is a state of doing. So it was just a couple of things I heard you say as you reflected back to me in your own words that I thought was super interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking at a comment. It's from, can you see the comments on your end as
Yeah,
well?
I can too. It looks like D-Light Star.
Right. So she's got a couple of comments going, and it sounds really like right on point. Um, I don't know if there's a question in there, but while you get to enjoy all the emotions, okay. Um,
Yeah, I don't
it's just
see your question, but I do see lots of interesting reflections. So thank you,
right.
Delight.
Yes. You know, I had somebody, and this was recently, I had a young lady who asked me because she's a friend of mine. So we're always having conversations. And when she goes into one of those ego kind of things, she'll call me and she'll have her moment. And
Mm-hmm.
after she's have her moment, I'll go, well, because she knows I'll reflect it back to her. And I'll say, well, I
Mm-hmm.
heard your ego say blah, blah, this and blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. And she said, and so we talked about it, but she had texted me. She said, Sandra, is it okay that I'm in the feeling and the emotion? I said, well, God gave you, and I just use that word God because
Mm-hmm.
everybody has different
Yeah.
terminology. And I said, well, Almighty God gave you feelings and emotions for a reason. They're not just there to have so that you can push them away or resist them. They're opening up direction you to heal yourself or to pull
Mm-hmm.
yourself away from a situation or a certain circumstance. And you're perfectly okay to have your feelings and have your. It's when you get stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, explain that some more to me. I said, well, I'd have to go into ego. Are you ready for that? That's a conversation that could take 1,000 years. Are you ready? Right. But we got to talk about it a little. How when you're coaching,
Mm-hmm.
uh, do you do you do you help people to understand the emotional aspect of the direction of their life and their choices? Is
That's a great question. All these questions you're asking me, I could talk about forever. But I'll try to be succinct. So let's say a person comes to me with some kind of problem or emotional charge, and they are stuck in the feeling of maybe a people pleasing tendency, just to give an example. I would ask, in addition to teaching my clients skills to regulate their nervous system so they can learn to feel safer and safer and safer in their bodies, we get super curious. I like to ask inquisitive questions to peel back the layers and kind of figure out what's going in the subconscious. I agree with you. Feeling is super important. Emotions are energy in motion. Crying is fabulous. It moves those emotions out of our body, so they don't get stuck. Stuck emotion results in disease. We hold our issues in our tissues, as they say. Um, have you heard? So we want to process, we want to move, and you're right. You don't want to stay in a charged emotion, and you also don't want to ignore it, because then you kind of hold it within this beautiful shell of a human that you are, and you get, I'm putting in air quotes, mental illness, and you get disease, and you get illness, you get all these things. that, if you had proper mechanisms for processing them, wouldn't get stuck. So 1,000% agree. We've got to let ourselves process it. And then I also like to ask those inquisitive questions to peel back the layers. I find when people understand their triggers, it makes it a lot easier to find resolution and move forward.
Right. I totally agree. I just went through, not written through, well, I'm going to say no, I'm going to try to, I was about to say I bumped up against something that I never really thought about. So
Mm-hmm.
I have the label is triggers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that we call it that. We call it what it is. It's our trigger, our something within us being triggered by somebody who's having a conversation. Now, in general, most people say, I want to have boundaries around those people that trigger me,
Mm-hmm.
which is not going and getting rid of whatever's inside you that is being triggered, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's generational, or whether it's just individual, or something that's happened in your most recent past, meaning growing up, and meaning not from mother to grandmother to great grandmother, but
Mm-hmm.
your most recent growing up. And I dealt with a person who chose to allow her trigger to be her control, to control other people,
Mm-hmm.
so that she wouldn't be triggered, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you have you come up against that, and how do you work with that?
So, have I come up with against that in terms of my clients reflecting that kind of behavior? Not within my clients, because I find that people who seek out coaching or spiritual support usually are more inclined to want to get to a resolution and get curious about why they feel a certain way.
Right.
However, I have worked with people who have been in dynamics or relationships with others who might be like the person that you were describing, where instead of getting curious about why they're feeling emotionally charged and kind of projecting it onto others, they do that instead of their own work. And when I hear that, I hear a person who feels very unsafe as a human in their body. And I hear a person who, for whatever reason, feels really safe to do the work. And so they have what we call unhealthy coping mechanisms and unhealthy coping skills. Does this excuse any poor behavior or mistreating of other people? Absolutely not. Everybody is 1,000% responsible for how they show up in life.
Right.
But when we usually in these dynamics, there'll be the healthier person, right? And when we have an awareness that their behavior is not because of us, but their behavior is because they haven't worked their shit out and they're refusing to do it, it enables us to feel less, well, to not feel responsible, because I find that a lot of times people feel responsible for other people's behaviors. It's not your responsibility. They got to do the work themselves.
Right. I mean, that's what I come up when something gets triggered in me. It's like I go readily to the fact that, oh, so and so said something, and that made me feel, hurt or whatever. But it's just they said something, and then I got triggered. Well, I've got to go in and
Mm-hmm.
see where that's resonating at me, and then I have to go. Hey, I have to go. I dive into meditation, and I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, source, we're going to do a deep dive. Source is always going to say yes to me. We're going to do a deep dive. I need to know where this feeling is coming from. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
that. I've noticed that I've had it a lot when this particular conversation comes up, and it doesn't matter who's saying it. It could be my sister, or it could be a best friend, or it could just be somebody, walking down the street and wanted to say good morning, and then said, oh, you do this, this, and this, and all of a sudden I'm just there.
Yeah.
Right. First your ego wants you to blame that person. Okay, block that. Okay, know, okay, you need to up your boundary. I noticed that a lot of people will talk a lot about boundaries, and boundaries are good. I believe some boundaries are very healthy, but it's how you're setting those boundaries. If you're setting those boundaries to keep people out so you don't vibrate the wrong way, then to me, you're not addressing the
Yeah.
actual way. You're putting a Band-Aid on an open wound.
1,000%. I always like to say our triggers are our teachers, and your trigger is going to teach you about unhealed parts of yourself. Oftentimes it's a shadow aspect of yourself that you have smushed away.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our brain is super interesting because when we experience a traumatic event, and listen, trauma isn't necessarily like something like what we might think of like war. It can include war. All trauma is the experience of too much happening too soon for the nervous system to be able to handle it. That's all it is. Let's not make it into, and I think people make themselves small sometimes. Oh, I haven't experienced this. Everybody's experienced something that's been really hard on them.
Right.
So anyways, I digress. So what happens is when a traumatic event happens to a person, not only does it affect our subconscious to where we have these shadows, but what happens is a part of our brain will imprint this in as a memory. Oh, this situation happened, and tuck it deep inside. And then when another situation happens that reminds the brain of that memory, we get a trigger. So someone says something, and it reminds you of feeling abandoned as a child. Or I work with this one client who actually was in the military and has a charged nervous system from that. And when people don't follow traffic laws, it really revs them up and makes them feel unsafe because let's say someone's driving on like the emergency, like, you know how they have the emergency passenger lane on like highways that you're not supposed to drive on? It really revs them up because to them it feels very unsafe. It reminds them of being stuck in certain kind of enclosed areas, even though that's not an unsafe situation. That person's just being a dill hole, right? So our brain will respond to situations that feel unsafe to us or remind us of times when we were harmed or, you know, aspects of ourselves that we've hidden our conscious brain from. So a lot of times when we get triggered, it's exactly like you said, a reason to go, hold up. This person was not intentionally saying something unkind to me, but what they said made me feel some way. This is interesting. Let me deep dive.
Right. I'm going to tell you that let me deep dive. I think I've been doing that since I was like young. Okay. I don't know if my soul was totally unveiled at a certain time, but
Yeah.
there was just a dive questions that I would do. I would literally scare adults when I would ask questions because I grew up in an age where children should be seen, not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Asking and questions or asking questions that would stump adults.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I would notice that I okay, this would be me back then. Now, I'm not going to say I'm totally like free from this because I think, it comes up quite a bit. As a kid, when adults would say things that irritated me, right? I would say, okay, I'm going to go in my bubble now and you can't come in. That was my way of separating myself from them, right? I'm going to go in my bubble now. You can't come in. And I would focus my mind on it. If it was like a teacher from school, I would be in that bubble all 8 hours or 6 hours of the day. However long school lasted, I was in that bubble. But see, what I did was I put myself in that bubble because of them and because they had tread hardly, I think, hard on what I consider they tried to tread hard on my threshold of what I believed, and I wasn't ready to let go of what what I wanted to say. Basically, if they were in that children should be seen and not heard kind of mentality. So I
Mhm.
stayed in the bubble all day, and I wouldn't let anybody in.
Sounds like you developed like a coping mechanism that really was soothing to you, is what I'm hearing, a very soothing way of doing that. So that, like, what brilliant natural intelligence, you have that you leaned into.
It was like, I'm in my bubble now. Don't anybody bother me. It's
Hmm.
it's okay. You think what you think, and I'll go, and I'll still be me, and I'll still do my work, and I'll still, that whole day. But
Hmm.
it was like, kind of like a kid going,
Hmm.
Now, but I bring it forward now. It didn't work for me as as becoming an adult, becoming a mom, and or what I thought was supposed to be a wife, and what I thought was supposed to be happily ever after. I found that bubble didn't work for me. And
Hmm.
I found that the more I live life, the less the integrity of the bubble didn't exist. you know
I wonder, I wonder if that's because as a kid we only have so much autonomy, and so you have to deal with the situation at hand sometimes. So the bubble was your protection, whereas as you evolved into an adult, you had more autonomy to make decisions about how you wanted your life to look and who you wanted it to surround yourself with. So it's like, bubble's not going to work now. Now you get to use your autonomous, power to make decisions about how you want your life to look.
Yeah. And at that point, it's like sometimes how I wanted my life to look didn't exactly work out.
It'd
You
be
know,
like that sometimes.
well, that choice I made, oh, that didn't work out the way I thought it was going to go, that kind of, and I'm going to say, like anybody else, I learned my lessons that when I got stuck in those emotions and those feelings about that, it wasn't a great feeling, because once you get stuck in them,
Mhm.
um, it starts to it starts to really hurt the inside, and then reflect outward, you know, kind of thing. So I got one more. What is the time? We got time. We got at least 30, 40 minutes. Okay, so I'll give you an example. For me, when I was starting, my spiritual, trying to figure out how I wanted to do my spiritual business. I have I have two things going at the same time.
Mhm.
I Source thinks I'm a multitasker. All I got to say is okay. So I've got my accounting business, Marshall Account Solutions. I've got that going on, trying to figure that out. And then while I was trying to figure that out during COVID, I said, "Oh, I can do soul awakening with Sandra." And my granddaughter said, "Oh, let me set up Instagram. Blah blah
Oh.
blah. You've got so much to say." So she helped me along that path. So in that path, I was trying to figure out, the business aspect, because for me, I never was one of those people. If I give you information, I'm not expecting anything back. If
Mhm.
I'm giving you spiritual information, or if I'm giving you something and I'm just doing it from my heart, right?
Mhm.
I don't know how to market. It's like, you want me to market that and charge somebody for something, for a gift that God has given me? How do I even do that? Well, when I started out doing it, it was, mindset, changing your mindset, doing the grind, that kind of whole kind of thing. And I got on a cold call with a renowned person that, I was listening. You listen to the first 30 minutes of what they got to say, and that pulls you in it. And then they do the cold call. And it
Mhm.
feels so inept,
Mhm.
because they went from, um, I really love your page, to, if you don't do it our way, your page isn't going to
Mhm.
succeed, or your soul awakening with Sandra isn't going to get where it needs to go. And basically they were saying, if you don't pay us 10 grand,
Mhm.
right, you're not going to get where you're going to go. So my thing is, what makes your spiritual business practice, right, different from theirs? Go.
Oh man, I could talk on this forever. Why do you keep asking such good questions? Okay, so I want to unpack a few different things. I want to talk about spiritual entrepreneurs and the lightworker money wound. So if I forget to go back to that, please remind me. And I also want to talk about how there's a fuck ton of bullies in the online space, and I'm not about that shit where people are trying to make others feel bad about whether or not they decide to invest in themselves or their business. That is the antithesis of trauma informed. So I hate that shit so much. I've had that happen to me on calls too, where like, you know, for whatever reason, I might not want to invest because maybe it's out of my budget. Maybe I don't like them. Maybe it's not what I'm looking for. Doesn't matter. A no means no. And when you press against someone saying no, that is rape culture. If someone says, I don't want to buy that from you, and they say to you, and you say to them, well, you're not going to get exactly what you want unless you do. How is that any different than a person in a sexual situation having, let's just do a dynamic of a man and a woman, and I don't have any hard feelings against men. I'm just trying to contextualize this. I love my husband. But let's say the man is like, if you don't have sex with me, you must not really love me. How is this any different? It's not. It's fucking rape culture. So just want to get that out.
Thank you for pointing that out, you know, because I wouldn't have thought to put it in those exact words. But if we're going to put it in real life terms, okay, just that analogy is really great, you know.
So I do charge for my services. My services, the price range, depending upon if someone works for me, ranges between $50 and $6,500. I'm upfront about my prices. There's no, like, if someone were to send me a DM and ask how much a particular offer was, I would tell them. I wouldn't make them get on a call with me and wait till the end, because people want to know if it's in their budget or not. And if it's not in their budget, then I'm gonna, you know, let's not waste each other's time. It's okay. We all have budgets. With that said, the sales can be super icky, but I think that if you are running a spiritual business, and I think if you're in the helping field and you're making money off of helping others, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we live in a world where we need money to survive, then you also need to approach it differently. You can't be selling to people like they're in Radio Shack or trying to buy a computer. You're working with real people with real emotions who are real humans. And so I think that's the big thing that differentiates myself between, there's a lot of people like me, I'm not like unique, but between me and people like the person you told me the story about, they're not trauma informed, and they're looking at people as dollar signs rather than them fulfilling a soul mission to help people raise the vibration of the planet, heal, find peace, find abundance, and really live a happy life. And what we really want in a coach-client relationship is a healthy dynamic that is symbiotic. I'm helping you and you're helping me, right? And isn't that how like life goes on? They're helping me sustain my business and pay my bills and do the things I need to do, and I'm helping them achieve exactly what it is that they desire. And that's really what we want out of this dynamic. But I will never coerce someone or make someone feel insecure. I want someone, when they sign up to work with me, to be like, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I am happy. This is what I've been looking for. Maybe a little nervous because doing new things is scary. Let's just, like, anytime I've done anything new, whether that was working with a coach or, I don't know, I get nervous even going to new yoga studios, even though I've been practicing 15 years. Like, you know, new is scary. So that's okay, because abundance is on the other side of fear, and we got to step into discomfort to expand. But by no means do I want anyone in a trauma response when they start to work with me.
Right. Okay, so that's good. So light worker warrior wound.
Yes, light worker money wound. So there is, we have a culture of people with deep money trauma, and we have a culture of people with really, for lack of better words, bad money mindset. I would like to preface this by saying this is the matrix trying to keep you down, sister and brother. That's exactly what it is. Because all money is energy. Everything is energy. I am an energetic being. You are energetic being. The words coming out of my mouth are energy. Money is energy, and money responds to more energy. It responds to our thoughts. It responds to our beliefs. So what I see a lot of are these people who go into spiritual businesses, right? They get this calling to do this spiritual work, and then they're like, but I feel bad charging money. That's what the matrix wants you to think. It wants to keep you small, and it wants to keep you insignificant. The reason that people think that charging money for spiritual services is bad is because we've been told by the matrix it's bad.
Right.
Because monks and priests and different organized religious leaders take vows of poverty, and we have this whole cultural belief system in it. But I would really encourage anybody who is not charging money and they want to. If you don't want to, that's cool too. Do it, you know what I mean? Like, do what you want to do. There's no rules. But if you want to charge money and you're not, I'd really say this is an opportunity to deep dive into that subconscious.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because your matrix may just as well be one of your old dogmas that your egoic mind keeps spilling out to you. I know for me, that's it. You know, it's not just first off, it's not just my mind within my all of my body, because my mind within all of my body wants me to jump on the program and get you know, spiritually creative in every area of my life, including my professional life. But that matrix part of the egoic mind says, nope, you can't charge somebody for spiritual stuff. You're gonna have to figure out, no, you're gonna have to go back to a 8-hour, 40-hour work week, and you're gonna be miserable, but you'll get a lot of money. You'll have a steady paycheck, and that whole kind of vibe. And for me, it's like, you're back again. Get in the back seat. Put on that seatbelt. Pull the seatbelt tight. Oh, forgot your gag. Put the gag in. Hush. So I'm getting out of that, or allowing that mentality to move through me about money. Also, I grew up in a time where people would say, you know, I didn't hear this from my mom, because she was great, but I would hear it for the other adults that were around me, uncles and aunts and whatnot, who would always say, well, the money doesn't grow on trees for your mom. You need to stop. I think my uncle would say, you need to stop needling her about what you want. Don't you know you can't get what you want? You won't always get what you want. But as a kid, I would retort. And of course, I tell you, children should be seen, not heard. And in most places, children shouldn't be seen. When the adults come into the room, the children have to go and play in another room. But my question was, it wasn't a question, it was a statement. But money does grow on trees, you know, and you'd have the adults looking at you, but wait, trees are vibrational. Money comes from trees. They make paper, right? And then they print money on the paper. So it does come from trees. So money does grow on trees, right? You know,
Literally.
I didn't know back then. I was putting, spiritually two and two, and making yes.
Have you ever seen the documentary or read the book, The Secret?
Yes. Well, I seen the documentary. The thing
I love about the documentary is, I noticed this last time I watched it. I watch it every few months. I was watching it, and every single person that they had speaking was very affluent, but every single person speaking did not grow up in affluence. And they had various people of race and gender speaking, and there were people who were homeless, and there were people who were incarcerated. The reason that they became abundant is because they believed they could become abundant.
Right. And then they took that knowledge and that wisdom and knowledge, universal wisdom and knowledge, is out there for everyone. And they took it and they started writing books about it.
Yeah.
They started doing videos about it. They started sharing about it. And when they were doing that, the more they gave, Source said, okay, the more you're giving, okay, the more you're receiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
and being a good giver, you have to be a good receiver, right? I give, my mother would tell me every time I go to school, maybe not every day of the week, but there was a good time, at least once a week, I would come home without a sweater because if there was somebody else who was cold and I noticed that they never had a sweater, I'd give them mine, right? And then, of course, my mom would say, where's your sweater? I get ready to open my mouth and she said, never mind. I know. It got to that kind of thing. And it wasn't like I would go to school the next day looking for the kid to bring it back to me.
Yeah.
It was, I'd go to school, I'd have another sweater on and I was done. It's like, if I have it by me to give to you and you say to me, can I borrow? I'm not allowing you to borrow it from me. If I have it by me to give, I'm going to give it to you. But if I don't have it by me to give, I'm going to say, well, I'll give it to you for now. And if by the time you're ready to pay me back, if I don't need it, I won't receive it. Left myself open, kind of like to do that. So now I've been doing that so long, it's like, okay, I'm no longer, and thanks to COVID, this was a decision that was on the horizon. It became the catalyst that had me, move into that decision. So I went from working 40 years in corporate America to retiring early 2 years. And that's just a, set amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I'm starting my martial accounts business and going, I don't know how to market. I know how to do my accounting work with my eyes closed. I know that part, but I don't know the marketing part. And then through what I do with accounts, with Soul Awakening, I'm learning how to go back and do the marketing part, right? But there had to be a surrender, and all of that long talk to get to the surrendering part. What part of your surrender, not giving up, but surrendering to what your gifts, what your skills, what your talents are, was a part of what you're doing now? Because I see your stories, I see your post. I'll go in and I'll watch some of your videos, the ones that I can watch. And there was I know there was a surrender there. When did it? I feel it. Your information vibrates off the page, at least to me. I don't know to anybody else. When there's a surrender there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words in a way, which makes sense, right? I think probably, I mean, I can probably, in my very recent past, the past couple of years, identify a few different parts where I learned how to tap into surrender a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And it's kind of part of it goes back to learning to feel safer, learning to feel safer, learning to feel safer. It's easier to surrender when you feel safe. But I think that the biggest part is kind of a similar story to yours. I was doing this work part-time and I was unhappy in my 9 to 5. I'd worked in my 9 to 5 for over 11 years. And I started off at my 9 to 5 making not very much money. And my family experienced a lot of money trauma during the recession back in, I forget when that was, like 2007 or so, those years around there. So I had a lot of money trauma. I was pretty broke. And and then I'm giving you this backstory for a reason. And then by the time I had been in my career, and I used to love my career, and then by the time I was there for 11 years, I was finally making good money. I'd worked my way up the ladder, and I didn't like it anymore. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm married, so I wanted to make sure my husband felt comfortable with the decision because we share our bills. And I was like, I'm gonna quit my job and do this spiritual business thing full time. And he was very supportive, which was helpful. But I remember when I actually turned my notice in, I was like crying. I was so scared. And that was a moment of surrender. Surrender isn't always easy. It isn't always pretty. It doesn't always feel good. But there was still a part, my human was scared, but my higher self was like, it's gonna be all right. So that is one of my big surrender stories, which is very similar in many ways to your surrender story too.
Right. Yeah. So we're getting down to that last 5 minutes. So what I want to talk about. Okay, first, I know the people in this that are listening to us, we want you to come back. I have a spot at the end of April. I would like to talk to you about if you'll be available to come back at the end of April. So I'm going to contact you. I'm going to DM you about that because you're absolutely right. There is so many questions that I could ask that we could like just deep dive into, and I think, just sources vibrating with me that there are a lot of people that want to know that deep dive.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll talk about something that vibrates with you that we can just spend the whole hour talking about dive. And I have a feeling this is going to be more than, the end of April. I think it's going to be like some sessions that we're going to do. Cool. Just about deep diving, and because there are a lot of people who are traumatically hurting.
Yeah.
And some of them that, they're perusing every place. They're perusing Facebook. They're perusing, TikTok, and they don't know how to tap into that inner sanctum of themselves to find someone comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe if they hear the conversation going on, then they'll find out, oh, I feel comfortable with that person. I feel comfortable, if we're giving suggestions of books to read and videos to watch and stuff like that. So definitely I want you to come back for the end of April. I hope everybody says yes. Put a red heart if that's something that you would like. And even if you don't put the red heart in, I'm inviting you back.
I'm going to be at the very end of April in Nashville at a friend's wedding, but I definitely want to chat with you again. We'll definitely have to carve out a time to do that.
Yeah. So if it isn't the end of April, it can be, May is spring. So we can start springtime off. Well, it's almost the end of spring, but
same.
So anyway, I want to talk about a couple of things. Move, Eat, Breathe, Costa Rica retreat.
Aww.
Yeah.
You're so sweet to ask about that.
Okay.
So, in addition to being a life coach and a business coach, I am a retreat facilitator. So I am joining forces with one of my friends, Elizabeth. And, cold callers, not about the cold calls, girlfriend, not about the cold calls. Okay. We need to develop real relationships with our audience, and half those people are scammers. Okay, so the Move, Eat, Breathe retreat is, I'm joining forces with one of my girlfriends to host this international yoga and wellness experience from July 15th to the 22nd. All bodies welcome. There are people coming who've never done yoga before. You don't have to be the perfect yogi. So if you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to me.
All right. Liberation Women Retreat.
Yeah.
Go.
So that one's not international. That one is local in Pennsylvania from May 11th to 14th. I have 3 spots left. Registration is closing April 10th because I have to get a final head count to the resort, but it's going to be at an eco-chic mountain resort And the whole theme of this particular retreat is inner child healing and mind-body connection. And so hopefully you come away with some new soul sisters while feeling very rejuvenated and refreshed.
All right. So we're going down the line. Mastering Manifestation mini courses. That's still available?
Yes, that's my free manifestation program. It's a little mini course, self-guided, self-paced. And so if you were to follow me on Instagram and click the link in my bio, you could find it there.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm clicking the link. So, okay. Then we have the last one. It's called Meditation Insight Timer. Okay. I get meditation and I get insight. What's the timer part of it?
So there's actually an app called Insight Timer, and it's a free meditation app. And so you can download it and get access to tons of free meditations, and I have a few meditations on it. So if you guys want to go find Insight Timer, put it on your phone, and then look up Alison Grass, my last name is Grass, you could find me and hear my voice guiding you through meditations.
That's beautiful. All right, so tell people where they can, I know you have Linktree. I do know you, so you can go to her bio, click Linktree, and you can find her there. Is there any place else that they need to know specifically about that will titilize them and vibrate with them?
I would know. Instagram's the best place to start off. You know, you can follow me here, see if you like me.
Okay.
If you do click my link tree, it does give links to, which is that link in my bio, it does give links to other things like my website, for example, where you could like read reviews or see video testimonials from former clients on there. So you could check that out, but it's all available on Instagram.
Great, great. I'm so excited. I'm excited because she's coming back.
I am.
See, we don't know the day or the month, but she is coming back. I already feel that. I got a massive download of that. Delight Star, you are from India. I thank you. I'm sorry that we couldn't read your comments because we just needed to get out a lot of information. So you know, it's an hour, you know, or so, and you know, I just want to give you guys as much of Alison as I can. So I hope you forgive me if I did not, you know, engage a lot. So thank you, and thank you, Alison.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy like talking to and engaging with you. You're such a sweet soul. I know we've, you know, communicated in all different ways before, so I'm very happy to always be in your presence.
Oh, thank you so much. And Alison has a Facebook page, right?
I closed that group down because it was too much work to maintain.
Oh, okay. Well, you missed out on some great women and some great information. But like she says, you can find her here on Instagram.
Yes. And sometimes I do card pools on Instagram since I don't do them in my group anymore. So I'll do like card pools and light language activations for folks. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Those are always fun to do here.
Yes. Loko neochishi no to ai te uchendek I mata.
Agrestong gorista bagragas purista dagrestengongo.
Yes,
I got a little activation when you started talking. It stirred up in me.
Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know, if they're kind of like from the baby boomers or even older, light language is just what we used to call tongues.
It's the same idea as Judeo-Christian speaking in tongues. I agree. I put except that it's just source energy of whatever your belief system is coming through you.
Yeah. And it's souls get to talk to each other in what is not what human beings call their language.
Mm-hmm.
So embrace other souls that have been with each other for eons.
Mm-hmm.
And when you surrender to your light, like to the light language, your soul gets to be perfectly present within you. So
it's magic.
It's totally magic. I feel like right now, my mind doesn't even try to make sense of it. It just relaxes into it. And
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. So
Yes.
that you are a light language initiator, because that's wonderful. And that's going to be, we're going to have to talk about that, you
Yeah,
know,
maybe we'll have to cover that next time and then
next
do some
time.
light language activations.
Yeah. Can you activate it? Uh, what do you mean? Can she activate it right now within you, or are you talking about me? I was told that Source speaks directly through me, through my soul to me, and that I always activate someone when I'm speaking. Do I know I'm doing it? That human part of me? No.
And to be activated, to be responsive to it, you have to have a lot of divine feminine energy in you and a lot of surrender and being able to receive. When you get into the thinking brain, that's going to pull you out of that direct connection. You just got to let it flow through
Yeah.
you.
Nigel, uh, kind sir that you are, he asked, do you understand each other? Souls, yes. The souls within us, the beingness that's within us understand. Do as I can only speak for myself. My human part doesn't. The only time that I translate it is if source and soul want me to, and then they're the ones that are finding the words that I have within me to translate.
And
Um,
as for me, my body and energy system was very receptive when she started talking in light language. I got like this ripple. I was like, and it was like my soul got all excited, like, well, I want to do this now too. Like it very much so like felt it. Um, I don't understand on the human cognizant level of what she said. However, when I channel, I know what it means.
right.
My core cognizance knows what it means when it's coming through. So like when I do like card pulls for people or multidimensional energy healing sessions for people, I can tell them what was activated and healed as we did it.
Right. The same thing when I do my oracle cards. Yes. You know. Um, let's see. Giselle said, she said, no, me by myself. If you've been open and activated to it, yes, you're going to, whenever source wants to speak through you, it will just happen. For me, I will explain it this way. For me, I am an all or nothing kind of gal. And when something resonates with me so powerfully, and this has been ever since I've been a kid, I will just surrender to it. And I remember going to a holiness church on my path search, and I was listening, and I was I was so vibratory with listening to them speak in tongues. I think it was my soul saying, "Ooh, I'm home." Though the holiness church wasn't, it didn't fit the greater package of
Mm-hmm.
me. I said out loud as a child, I'm going to do that one day. And then, as a kid, I kind of, went on to doing, other things, and other things took precedent. And then I was on someone else's, no, when I started to listen to Abraham Hicks, and Abraham Hicks is her soul plus other souls combined that are that have come to use her as a vessel to give information. Then again, I said, if 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 she can allow her soul to translate through her, I can too. I want to do that. And one day I was just in my meditational bath, and not only did I hear my soul speaking in what my mind called English, in a different tonality, right? I knew it wasn't my human voice. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then a few months later, somebody was speaking light language who was a light language initiator. I didn't know that at that time, but when I went for my meditational bath the next morning and went into meditation, my light language happened. But for me, it was like total surrender. This is going to
Mm-hmm.
happen, but don't know when, and actually don't know why, and don't know what the translation is going to be. But I know I'm here to serve, and I know that that's part of the gift that's being open to me. I just didn't know when.
I had a similar experience.
Right? I mean, you know, and then you just know what you have to do. And you begin to, and sometimes when you don't ask source for what they know, they're just giving of what they know. Like, I just found out that my soul is where people stop at the Egyptian and they think that's how old things are. Our souls are a lot older than that. Our souls are, if we are the only ones that put old to it, old and young, our souls are forever. That's what I'm getting right now. They're forever. They're not
Yeah.
solar system. They weren't playing just in this solar system.
Oh my gosh,
So
we should so talk about all this stuff next time because
yeah,
I really want to. I feel like we could have a lot of fun talking about this because time doesn't exist and our past lives are happening right now at the same time as our present lives and all this stuff. So yeah, I think that combined with our light, we have a lot to talk about.
yes. So we will get together. We will find out what and when we're doing next, and then I will keep you guys appraised.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Sandra.
Thanks for accepting, receiving, and showing up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not everybody give much gratitude to Alison. If you are truly grateful for her being here, just say thank you,
Oh,
thank you. By the time you get to the third thank you, it's going to be so embodied that she's going to feel it right where she is right now. So thank you so much. Nigel, I saw light language in people when young. Never knew that was happening. Thank Interesting. Thank you. You are so welcome, Nigel. And Nigel, source speaks through Nigel with this art. You have to go to Nigel's page, Nigel Clegg, and look at his art and watch how source works. I'm going to tell you that was such vibrational chills. So thank you, Nigel. All right, everyone, I am going to close this this podcast with 10845. I'm into numbers too. I'm learning more and more about them. And thanking you for, coming through and listening to us have a conversation, a soul conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
right. Bye,
Right.
y'all. Have a great
All
weekend.
right. Bye-bye. Thank you. All right. I want to thank you guys for joining Soul Conversation, the podcast. Just for your pleasure, I am doing a podcast tomorrow, same time, 11:30 and 2:30 p.m. East Coast time. I am going to have a friend it's called Casual Saturday. And we're just I want you to hear what she has to say about life, about being a mother, about being an ex, about, how her path grew and how she applies her spiritual gifts in her everyday life. So join me with Casey. She goes by Queen Casey. And matter of fact, let me get her full name. It's called Queen Casey Starseed. All right. So join me tomorrow. It's April 1st, and it's a special edition. Join me. Love you. Thank you. Be blessed.